What we really hear a lot of right now is discussion around net zero. What's really interesting about it is defining net zero and trying to identify a pathway towards net zero, or even identifying if net zero considerations are appropriate for your organization. It really does require a lot of education and understanding around what pieces fit into that net zero ambition, and ultimately how are we going to understand the risks and opportunities that exist for our capital to pursue net zero or not. And what often gets talked about in a hand-in-hand kind of way with net zero is the decarbonization planning, decarbonization strategy, which they're not the same thing. They are related, of course, in that you need a decarbonization plan as you move towards your net zero ambition. But you don't have to have a net zero target in order to pursue a decarbonization plan. Decarbonization really can mean multiple things to different parts of the economy and different organizations within each sector. But really, it's how do we look at our current operations and really understand where the opportunities are to reduce our emissions. And so we're decarbonizing our emissions profile for what's under our control. Now, if you start expanding a little bit beyond that, and certainly when you have a net zero discussion, you're looking more at the full value chain, or really the life cycle of your product or service, whatever that is. And so considering what a life cycle analysis looks like for your product or service now becomes a consideration. As you look to develop a net zero strategy, within that, you want to identify your decarbonization plan. Are we going to focus on our area of operation, our area of control? Are we going to look at maybe joint venture partnerships or other interests we have in different assets? What does the boundary look like for our net zero or decarbonization plan? And that's where you start leaning into understanding what a life cycle emissions profile or life cycle environmental impact profile looks like for your organization. Because life cycle analysis can include land impacts, water impacts, as well as your GHG emissions profile, social impacts. There's multiple components you could add into your life cycle analysis, and really making sure that you spend the time up front to identify the boundaries that you want to hit for your life cycle analysis, and ultimately for your decarbonization plan and your net zero ambition will really help de-risk the capital and the resources that you plan to put into that strategy.